Hello and welcome. As Ricky said, I'm James Brown, Head of Digital Manufacturing at Prodtex. So before we dive too deeply into it, for those of you who don't know who Prodtex are, so we are a company based in Northern Europe. We specialize in construction, infrastructure, aerospace and automotive. Our prime focus is Delmia digital manufacturing, both as a license provider, a trainer of the software, and we also offer expert consultancy in how to use it and to help solve customer problems, which you'll get a flavor of through this series. And then just to mention it, we also do work in robotics and tooling. I always like to mention that as it means we're not just using the software, we also understand your same issues you go through as manufacturers as well. Cool. So as Ricky said, really exciting 2 weeks. We've got 2-3 weeks we have planned for this webinar series. So this is going to run through a range from factory optimization off-site all the way through to on-site ergonomic assessments and on-site simulations. Today's session, we're going to kick off with an introduction to 3DEXPERIENCE Delmia to really kind of give you that grounding for the rest of the webinars. Cool. So in this specific session today, we're going to run through some of the key trends that we've seen in construction from our point of view. This is based off work we've done with different customers and the trailblazers on the call. And I spotted some of you in the attendees, so thank you. You know who you are. So we're going to kind of share some of that information. We'll also look at how the sector is moving forwards with digital construction and what digital construction tools are available, specifically 3DEXPERIENCE. And then we're going to finish off today with kind of an overview of the benefits of virtual simulation on-site and off-site. Cool. So to introduce kind of a sector problem, so usually when a customer approaches us for this sort of work, they either want to move away from project-driven construction or they have no idea they're doing it, basically. So some of you are probably thinking, what is project-driven construction? So I've put together a really basic scenario here, so it's simplified a bit, but I think hopefully it's easy to understand. So usually with a project, you're going to start off with some architecture for a building. You're then going to move into design for construction. So this is a phase where you need to turn that architecture into something that is real, basically. So we're talking about adding rebar, structural elements, detailing of architectural things, and really bringing this thing to life. And this process can take a long time. There's a lot of learning there, a lot of work, basically. And then once we know how this thing is going to be built and what we want to build it from, we then need to account for the equipment, the crews, who we're going to use, when we're going to use it, is that available at the time we need it, all of that sort of detailing. And then at the end, once we've done that, we then build the building. So you take this with a bit of pinch of salt because obviously some of these things can happen in parallel. But yeah, so, and the big thing with this for project-driven construction is through that process we've just gone through, we're really focusing on the site at the end. So this is us solving all the problems for just this site. And then you've completed the job. Hopefully you've done awesome work and you can pat yourself on the back. And then we get another job and we go through all of those lessons and challenges again. And then we go to another job and repeat the process again. If you're lucky, you'll get some same people from previous jobs who have the experience. But from what I've seen in the past 4 or 5 years is these people typically either will not be on your project, they've been moved to another project, or they've left the business to move somewhere else, or they've even retired. There's a real problem here with know-how of how that's captured. So how do we solve that? So the thing we've been pushing is a kind of revolution, I guess, in the sector is product-driven construction. So if rather than considering those same 3 sites as individual projects, if we look across all 3 of those buildings, we can start to identify some repeat products and modules across the whole site. So what do I mean by that? We're looking for products or processes that are happening hundreds or thousands of times again and again and again. So once we've identified that, whatever it is, we can start to do some product development in R&D to basically either optimize an existing solution for a product, or we might even develop our own as a business. We might say, we can do that better. Let's try build something ourselves. And then once we've done that, we can add that to a library, and then all that know-how around that product, all those issues are captured, but we don't stop there. So using Delmia, we can start to do some on-site DFMA and installation, where we basically want to assess how this thing is going to be installed on site, what it looks like, where the worker safety issues are, what equipment are you going to use. We get to really, really granular detail around the real installation process of this thing, and all digitally before you've had to invest loads of money, which is good. And same thing, we capture that know-how into a library. So this is stored in your business again. And then if you have sufficient volume, you might also be considering making this thing yourselves, or how can you improve the prefab process in a factory. So then we basically go through that same iteration again of how can we improve the resources, how do we lay out the facility, what does it look like, really optimize that, and again, capture all that information in your business. And then together now, we have a library of product data, on-site install data, and off-site fabrication data. So now we have this kind of unified library with loads of information in your business, which is awesome. But then how do you use that library? So now we've built it, we've identified something, let's take it into the world. So you might have multiple site opportunities. So this could be 4 or 5 projects or more, or even just one massive project where you've identified you can deploy this product to your site, or these opportunities. So once we've identified that, we then need to do what's called configured product design, where we will take this standard product and we will tweak it and adjust it to fit the customer's requirements. So usually there's going to be some specific architectural requirements or specifics with the project, where a wall needs to be a certain length, a certain height, an MEP unit needs certain things in it which you can configure. If you're doing something really clever here, you might even do some parametric design. If you don't know what that is, I definitely won't have time to cover it in this session, but I'd recommend you go to the CATIA AEC channel on YouTube, and Jonathan Usher has some great videos there on configured products, so check it out if you've not seen it already. So we don't stop there. So then we're going to do some site simulations. So this might be for specific restrictions on a site. So it might be you have a really tight loading area. It might be there's a specific really tricky bit, or even a common thing for us is how do we actually flow the build up of this product through the site? If you have 2 wings of a building, do you put 2 crews working parallel, or do you have 1 crew working back on themselves? So that sort of high level sequencing we can simulate and optimize. And similarly, you might do same sort of stuff for the factory, which I'll kind of cover later as well. And then you build the building based off all of this configured product data, all of the great prefab stuff, and your simulations which have taken out the risks for site. So again, we don't stop there. So on site, I guarantee it, especially if this is the first time you're deploying that product, this will be, unfortunately, the worst time you will ever deploy it, because you'll probably find more issues on site. You'll find optimizations on site where someone in your crew has figured out a really good little jig they can use to make something better. So what we're trying to do is not just do this and then stop, but continue iterating our product and continue improving it and feeding that back all the way into our original library. So we're constantly getting better as a business. So the first time will be the worst, second time will be much better, and by the 5th and 6th time, or as you're going through, this product's accounted for every single possible issue, configuration, resource requirement, and you just have all that information now in you as a business. So that's a lot to take in. What do I mean by products? So if you're not that familiar with construction, hopefully everyone on the call is. What do I mean by a product, and what could that be? So there's kind of 5 typical examples of that in the field, or 5 different categories I've bunched into. The first being structural, which could be columns, walls, stairs, things like that. The next will be architectural, which is things like dry lining or gypsum walling, or architectural elements. The third is MEP, which is racks and risers, which the picture on the bottom left gives an example of that, of the services running through the building, so chunking that together. Fourth being volumetric modules, such as bathroom pods or larger structures like the bottom right picture, which we're seeing more and more in the market now. And the 5th one is actually a combination of different things. So for example, I've categorized as a separate piece because you might have a architectural wall which has some integrated MEP in it. So now this is actually accounting for multiple systems in that product. Or you might have a external structural wall which has the glazing and the windows and the doors pre-built into it. So now that's taken into account some architectural elements in the structural component. So yeah, again, when you're trying to identify these, we're looking for products or processes that happen hundreds or thousands of times in the field, because that's going to give you the biggest opportunity for waste removal in your process. Cool. So moving on to the tools, what can we use to do this? So I'll give you a brief intro today, and then the rest of the webinars will cover it in detail. So if you've never heard of 3DEXPERIENCE, this is essentially, this is my take on it, it brings all forms of data together into a single area. So I'll touch on that again in a moment. It's about bringing all people together from across the business and suppliers into one location. So it's no longer just designers, no longer just manufacturing or sales and their little bubbles. This is bringing everyone into one platform. And the third, arguably most important point is you've put the people and the data together, but now you need to give them the tools to use that data and create something amazing. So yeah, so 3DEXPERIENCE has a suite of tools that you can use to solve anything, pretty much. And the biggest thing with this is data is really the backbone of 3DEXPERIENCE. So it's all about the data you're putting in. It's not a magical software that will just type in solve my problem and it will happen. You feed it with data, and this is really going to bring you to data-driven decisions in your business later on, depending on what you're doing. And some people often ask me, why now? Surely this is obvious, and bring people together, tools together, data together, why now? This has been developed since 2012 by Dassault Systems. I would say computers have never been better now. The past 4 or 5 years, they've really jumped ahead to enable this large construction stuff, and the software is never been better as well. So you're really in a precipice point now. If you're on this call listening to this, you can be the trailblazers leading the sector with this sort of information. Cool. So just briefly, what do I mean by data? I'm going to give 2 examples. One is design data. So this is obviously, it could be an entire site. It could be your individual product. So you might work traditionally in something like Revit or Rhino or AutoCAD, or have some ISC data or Tekla data. That's okay. That's sort of done some great work with 3DEXPERIENCE, where you can bring all of these different file formats into the platform. So that's why we say it's bringing all data into one place. Or you might be more advanced and use some of the CATIA parametric stuff that I mentioned earlier. Fantastic if you're doing that. That's native to 3DEXPERIENCE, so even better. And then on the flip side of that, the focus that we're going to do in this webinar is the Delmia manufacturing data. So this is things like equipment models, hand tools, process information, what you're using in your factory, jigs, tools, people, work instructions, all of that big sort of information, everything to do with manufacturing, we capture and bring together with the design data in one software. So no import export. So just very briefly, to run you through what that looks like when you're using it. So we start off with a EBOM, or engineering design or architectural design, where we usually have some collaboration for us as manufacturing, either on-site or off-site, to understand what that product is and why they're trying to do it, and where the weaknesses are and strengths. We then do something called a manufacturer bill of materials, or sometimes called construction bill of materials, where we're going to break that product down into smaller chunks to manage it, which I'll explain further in a moment. We then do process engineering for sequencing, resource and layout for on-site and off-site. So this is bringing that data into the process. And then after that, these kind of all happen in parallel, depending on what is your business driver. So some companies, you might really have a focus or a problem for your product with ergonomics. It's a particularly tall product, and how are the people going to reach it? How are they going to do it? What's the strain on their body? So you jump straight to that assessment. If you're more talking about the factory, someone might straight away want to know about factory flow and the rate and the bottlenecks and really care about their production line, in which case we would jump straight to that simulation environment to solve it. So those kind of elements on the right, you always need the stuff on the left to set it up and bring it in, once you have it, you can really start to run with solving your problems. And then briefly, just because I mentioned I'd come back to it, so for MBOM, as this is a tricky concept in construction, so I always like to use the example of a well-known flat pack furniture supplier that most people will have built their furniture in their homes. If you're building a table, and if you had a table and chairs, you'd probably expect to have 2 boxes turn up to your house. So one box would contain the table, and one box would contain the chairs. So everything you need to build the table, you open it up and you build it and you do it. And the same for the chairs. It wouldn't make sense to have one box with all of the fasteners in, one box with all of the chair legs and the table legs and the instructions for the table, and the other one with the chair tops and the tabletop. You'd have to open up every single box just to build one of the items. That wouldn't make sense. So we take that same principle into construction and bill of materials. So example here on the left, you can see the product is on the top level, and then we have our modules that we need for on-site to install it below that. And actually, even deeper within that, we need to manufacture these modules, right? So we then also have our off-site modules, which we need to produce as well. So this is just a way of breaking up the product. And then, of course, we can consume this into our sequencing and our process to start to get an idea of how this thing is going to be built and what it looks like. And as you can see, it's very, very visual. So we found this has been really valuable for all of our customers. And I want to mention it as I asked a few customers before this what a key value point for them was. And especially for new products, this was really key to drag and drop a product around, understand what they're going to do for make or buy, and understand the rough sequencing on a really high level before you get detailed. Cool. And then for free, you get this kind of 4D build up if you've gone through that process as well. So I'm more highlighting this. I won't run you through in detail what's happened here. I'll save that for the other webinars. Just highlighting that these are the 2 products that we'll demonstrate to you in the rest of this series. So you have the volumetric 4D build up on the left, which is representing a kind of garden studio, outside office sort of thing as one unit. And then we also have a kind of dry lining architectural wall on the right, which consists of studs, plasterboard, insulation, things like that. So we'll show the factory for the one on the left and the on-site installation and optimization. And then we'll also show on-site for the right and identifying a new potential opportunity with that as well. Cool. So for this session, I was kind of trying to put together what some typical value is for on-site and off-site. So why should you do an off-site simulation and on-site simulation? So for off-site, the typical issues we've seen or reasons for a business to get involved with it would be things like factory layout. So does it fit in the building? Where do the stations go? Where's the material going? Can I actually get the product out the door? And customers on the call, you know who you are. I've gone through that with several customers now. We've realized the product can't fit out the factory door because construction stuff is big. So what are the constraints in the factory? There's also the interesting thing around simulating the processes in the factory. So making sure you're using lean principles. For example, making sure the material and tools are where they need to be used, when they need to be used. So for example, it doesn't make sense to have your drill on the wrong side of the factory. Bring it to where the operator needs to use it to build it, to reduce time waste. Another huge topic for factories is DFMA, or design for manufacturing and assembly. So this is a massive topic of, can you actually build the product? Does it need to be split into further subsystems? How many subsystems? What equipment are we going to use? That sort of thing. So DFMA, especially in construction, is huge at the minute. And the last one, which has been quite a popular one, I'd say, is advanced manufacturing. So looking at different opportunities for automation for high volume products. So this could be full automation with robotics, or it might even just be using clever things like jigs and tools and fixturing to kind of lean out your process to hit a full production. And this is kind of piggybacking on the awesome work from aerospace and automotive that we've seen as well. Cool. And then for on-site, so same sort of thing. So the kind of big value points for us we've seen businesses doing this is Typically, they want to understand the site layout. So can you get the resources you need to fit in the locations they should be? So if you have a big piece of equipment, can it actually get into the space that's needed to be used? Where are the material buffers? Are you using canty decks, buck hoists, forklifts, that sort of thing? A huge topic is worker safety. So unfortunately, we all know the problems with construction, that there still are injuries and deaths in this sector, and it's a big issue. So using ergonomics, the ergonomics tools in Delmia has been massive for us to check if something is safe, see if it can be improved, see if something does appear safe, but actually they're doing that process hundreds of times, and across a week, it will cause that operator an injury. So finding these issues and finding ways to make the sector safe has been bringing our customers huge value and a huge impact to their business. And kind of the final one, there was obviously more on this screen, but I'll run through a few key points, is understanding how to actually install a product in the field. So you've identified that, you have this wall. How are you actually going to build it? How do you simulate it? What's all the steps you're going to go through? And there's two key values with doing this. The first is it obviously captures the know-how of this is how you install that product in the field and the resources associated with it. But the second huge thing for me has been a communication tool. So I've had quite a few times where we've interviewed customers and we've had 3 people who understand the product inside and out. They've all agreed that is how you install the product. I've simulated the install of that product in 3D. There's no disputing how it looks. And then one person from the 3 before has said, perfect, that's exactly what I meant. And then the other 2 have gone, ah, that's not what I meant. I was thinking we would do something completely different. So then that doesn't mean any of them are wrong, but it means there's multiple ways to install that product. We can simulate all the different methods. It makes sure we're all singing from the same hymn sheet and we all understand each other. And then we can make a data-driven decision on which one is the best solution for a specific site. So yeah. Cool. And then, so that's kind of most of my session done. So we have a few minutes at the end, but yeah, so that was me introducing 3DEXPERIENCE for Delmia and the AEC sector. Hopefully you found that interesting. We have a couple more webinars coming up. Like I said, we have 3 based on the volumetric product. So the next one this Thursday is going to look at the volumetric product in a factory. So we have some great work by a colleague that is going to show in that. And then we have a on-site simulation of that where they've asked us to install it outside the building, obviously digitally. So we'll show the process there. And then in the field, we're going to get some feedback from the site. So we're going to take that feedback from the site and optimize our factory further and improve it in the 3rd webinar on the 5th of May. And then after that, we're going to move to our second product, which is the walling system, where we'll show the on-site installation process of the traditional wall being installed, and we'll find some opportunities to lean that out and improve it, make it better. This will be followed by a kind of micro factory. So rather than a full-blown factory, how could we install a mini production line on site to smooth things out and make it more efficient? And then that will finish off with then this new product where we've done some pre-assembly or prefab on site in the micro factory. How do we install that new product? So, and what are the improvements compared to the traditional? And then if you've enjoyed all of this and you've loved seeing our faces, as Ricky said at the start, you can come also find us at Digital Construction Week in London on the 17th and 18th at the Dassault Systems booth. And if you've absolutely loved this and you want to try it out, so you go through these webinar series and you just want to get your hands on and get going with it. So we have a promotion at the minute where you can do a 3-month trial for everything we're going to show you in these webinars for £500 for 3 months, and we'll give you support and things like that with it. And there's no commitment past that 3 months because we know you'll love it, basically. So, yep. And then again, just to reiterate as well, so Prodtex are a license, and we offer licensing and training, so we sell the software as well, so you can buy the licenses from us, and we offer training courses to bring those skills into your business. And yeah, and obviously consultancy as well, similar to what we've done with other customers. And yeah, I think that might be it. almost bang on time. It's a miracle. So yeah, and don't miss out on our next webinar as well. Like I say, a colleague is myself and a colleague will be presenting that. Ed Lewis, so shout out to you. We'll be presenting that on this Thursday at 1 p.m. For getting a bit more technical as well. So the good stuff we love. Yeah. Thank you so much for Sorry, Ricky, I think you're on mute.
After James did such a great presentation, I had to go and make the technical mistake. I was literally just saying thank you for taking the time to present that, James. That was a really good session. So now we're going to have a few minutes for questions. So we've had one or two in the box already, but if anyone has any additional questions, type them into the Q&A box and we'll try and get through as many as possible. Before we get onto that, I just want to mention in the chat box, I've put in a couple of links for anyone that's interested. There's a link to register for the next webinar, which is going to be the offsite prefab digital factory webinar hosted by one of our excellent digital manufacturing engineers, Ed Lewis. He's got a lot of knowledge on the subject, so I know he's looking forward to presenting that to everyone. And then also a link to register for Digital Construction Week if you haven't already. We'd love to meet as many people as possible there, talk about these kind of things. If you want to arrange meetings with us, you can get in touch with us on the contact details on the screen. But yeah, I think time for a bit of questions and answers. Are you ready for some tough questions, James?
Oh, I'm ready.
So the first one we've got from David, and he's asked, how can the challenges associated with using 3DEXPERIENCE process capture be addressed when dealing with suppliers' design data who may not have digital capabilities or lack the necessary technological infrastructure?
Great question.
Yeah.
So can be addressed when dealing with suppliers' design data who may lack digital. Okay, yeah, so I'm assuming, David, if this is wrong, please put it in the chat, but you're getting data from products from your supply chain and you're bringing them into your business. So if they don't have sufficient design data, hopefully they have something, I'd say 2D, even if it's a spec document, something like that, we can start to actually represent that product in 3D for you as business. And then once we've kind of captured some of that base information, we can start to go through everything we've gone through here. So usually the very first step for us, David, is we would have technical interviews with our customers, and that usually they're suppliers, to be honest, who aren't at this level of maturity yet. So we go in, we capture as much information as we can, and hopefully we can capture enough to basically take us through this 3DEXPERIENCE process. Hopefully that answers your question. If not, please put in the chat again and we can revisit.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning as well that the platform is inherently a collaborative platform. So in theory, if you do have suppliers that have the digital capability, then they can collaborate with you on the platform on your tenant and you own the data, which is great. And if they don't have it, like James said, you're importing their data somehow to use it anyway for your design work, your BIM data, so you can import most levels of construction data into 3DEXPERIENCE. And there's different ways of doing that depending on where, there's connectors and things that can do that more automatically, or you can manually import that. So yeah, there's a lot of options, right?
And there'll be a lot of benefits for your customer as well, or your supplier, to actually think about modeling it. So if you're trying to simulate their product, your incentive to them to model their product could be, you can show them that through some simulation and optimization, their product's perfect for your site or all of your projects. So you're going to use it like mad through it. So I think there's some real incentives there for suppliers to model to a level that you can use as well. And we have seen that. That's something we've done with customers in the UK and elsewhere as well. So yeah, hopefully that answers that, David.
Right. On to the next question. So we've got a couple of questions from Charlie. I'll quickly answer the first one here. He's asked, is the session recorded and available to share later? Yes, we're recording this session, and we're going to make it available, so everyone who's attended this session will share you a link to review it at any time, and you'll be able to share it with any colleagues or anyone else you know who you think might have been interested in it. And then the other question, James, was what are the necessary technical skills in order to be able to get Prodtex set up for a construction company?
Oh, a great question, Charlie. So I think for us, the real, I'll give a success story, is the best way for you to do some of the stuff that we're going to show in this webinar series is you need a champion in your business. So usually when we approach customers, they like us to show it first as doing it through consultancy, and we'll prove it out and we can be your experts for as long as you want. But what we really want to do is build champions in your business that can do the same thing. So to be honest, the people you have already have the great skills that we need. So all we need is someone with really good construction knowledge and really good construction experience that understands your business products. And then ideally, if you have anyone that is familiar with CAD software, I would say that is a core skill that you need to do all of this 3D stuff, which I think makes sense. But it doesn't necessarily have to be 3D experience. If they've got experience in Revit or SolidWorks or Autodesk, you can transfer that 3D thinking across to 3D experience. And then usually what we like to do is have some formal training sessions to build people up to do this themselves. And that will be across 5 or 6 sessions, I'd say, depending how far you want to take it. Yeah, hopefully that answers that, Charlie.
Yeah, I think the one of the good things with Delmia is it gives you options to simulate a really broad range of manufacturing scenarios, whether it's ergonomics or kinematics or work instructions or a wide variety of things. And so it's not like there's one particular type of person that you can pull in and say they're perfect for Delmia. You could bring in like a mechatronics engineer, but they don't necessarily have like ergonomics experience. So it's more about there's going to be a range of people in your business that can contribute on a technical specialist level, but the person actually doing the simulation doesn't have to have a super deep understanding of those areas in order to create the simulations. They can pull the knowledge from those technical experts and be the expert in 3D experience to actually produce the simulation based on their know-how. So I think that works really well.
Okay.
And then we've got one more question here. I think we'll make this the last one from Callum, and he's asked, are you seeing a shift from Revit with your customer base, considering how hard set it is in the industry?
Great question, Callum. So it's an interesting topic, the Revit stuff. So Revit is obviously what architects are currently using and working with. I think there's a ridiculous portion of the market is using that. So it's about 95% or something crazy. Don't quote me on that. So what we know is we're never, like, the point of 3D experience isn't to change that user base, because a lot of the legal documents and legal requirements are built around that software to happen. So there's no point trying to change that. What we're trying to do is use that Revit information so they can keep using Revit as much as they want to. And we'll use that, we'll bring it into 3D experience. And what we're actually doing is we are enriching the data. So we're bringing in much more like prefab level bolt and nut detail to those designs. We're proving out the processes, the simulations, the ergonomics. So we're by no means replacing Revit. The big thing we are doing is just trying to build on top of it and use some of the great stuff from 3DX, essentially. So again, I referenced it earlier, but if your particular focus is design, I really recommend the CATIA AEC channel on YouTube, and check out Jonathan Asher's series on that. You can see some great stuff where he takes Revit and how do you say, enriches it to a fabrication level detail. So
yeah, and I think that's one of the real benefits of 3D Experience being a platform as well, is it gives you the ability as a business to pick and choose which elements of that platform are going to give value to you and be right for you. So some customers we've worked with, have specifically been interested in improving their ergonomics tool set. And so they've literally just brought in the ergonomics applications from 3DEXPERIENCE, the roles for that, and they've used those, and then they import data from elsewhere. Other customers have, a wide range of use cases, and then they bring those in, and then over time, they say, actually, we're already using these 5 or 6 different scenarios in Delmia. Maybe there's a benefit to start to do some of our design. So we've got more of the parametric design that complements the Delmia work we're doing and integrates a little bit better. And then over time, they upgrade to take on those roles as well. And there's no, fixed scenario you're locked into, and no, I doubt any 2 companies have the exact same portfolio of roles and tools from 3DEXPERIENCE that they're using, and I think that's one of the really powerful aspects of it. So
exactly. And on that last point as well, to really emphasize, all these cool things, they're not animations, these are simulations with real data behind it as well. So it's a big difference. It's not just a pretty picture.
Definitely. Right, well, I think that's about all the time we've got for today. So thanks again, everyone, for attending. Really appreciate it. And obviously, if you think this was of interest and you want to share it with your colleagues, that'd be great. We've got another 6 webinars coming up over the next few weeks. So we'd love to see you all again, and anyone else who you think might be interested in the subject. And thank you again, James, for taking the time to put this together for us. I think it's been a really good session. I've been really impressed with your depth of knowledge.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. Thank you for your time, everyone listening as well.
Great. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Speak again.